Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. Uh, Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics ever, which is eclipses, because eclipse season is pretty much upon us. And I think that it is a time of year that is greatly misunderstood. I think that it is a time that does bring a lot of change. It brings a lot of awareness, has the potential to bring transformation to people. But eclipse seasons to me are a sacred time. So first, I want to just start off by asking you, Ash, when you hear the term eclipse seasons or eclipse season or eclipses are coming, like what comes up for you?
Well, since knowing you, I think now that I know, um, I just think transformation,
Hmm.
opportunity for transformation, and I get a little excited, but I'm also like, what's this going to feel like?
Hmm.
And I've been through enough transformation in my life, which has been a lot, to
Right.
know that it may tingle and sting a little bit, but the light on the other side is going to be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think every single eclipse season that I've experienced in studying astrology has taken on a different role in my life. It has had a different understanding. And it hasn't come without its stinging moments. It hasn't come without all of the things that eclipse seasons can come with. And thank goodness for the understanding of astrology and just the understanding of spirit, the connection to the divine, and the understanding that everything really is unfolding for us,
Mhm.
and that eclipse seasons are really a time where we are directed towards what we're meant to experience here in this human lifetime.
Mhm.
So that's where I want to get started. So eclipses in the technical sense in astrology are when we have lunar events, whether it's a full moon or a new moon, and they are activating the lunar nodes of the zodiac. So, very technically, the lunar nodes of the zodiac, they aren't actual planets, they aren't actual planetary bodies at all. They're just mathematical points of the intersection between the sun and the moon. And so, in astrology, those points are very important because they represent karmic points, soul points of our most important soul lessons in this life. And so this is where we get the terms the North Node and the South Node. And so the South Node represents like the lessons that we're going to experience. And the way that we're going to experience them really depends on the sign that those nodes are in. But the North Node will represent kind of like that's like our mountain. That's like our Everest in this lifetime. The North Node are the lessons that we're here to learn, that we're here to climb that mountain to understand. And climbing that mountain comes with transformation. It comes with certain experiences in order for us to gain the wisdom and the knowledge. Now, the South Node represents the sign that it's in. It represents lessons and wisdom and knowledge that we already carry from a past lifetime onto this one. And so what tends to happen, because somewhere inside of us we are very accustomed to the south node energy, we tend to lean towards the south node energy almost by default and use that energy in our life, in our everyday experiences. And so when we get too comfortable there, the soul says, this isn't the way to approach it anymore. This is wisdom, and this wisdom is a tool for you to aim towards the other end, which is the North Node. So, one of the things to remember here is that The north and south node signs are always going to be two signs that are directly opposite of one another in the zodiac. And whenever we think of a sign in the zodiac, at least for me, I can't help but think of the sign opposite of it because astrology really shows us the beauty of balance and harmony. And so when we think of one sign, it's almost like we have to think of the sign directly opposite of it because there's something that the sign directly opposite of one sign will inform you about the energy altogether. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say that you have a north node in Aries. Well, your south node is going to be Libra because that's the sign directly opposite of Aries. You have a north node in Taurus, south node is going to be in Scorpio. You have a north node in Gemini, south node is going to be Sagittarius. If you have a north node in Cancer, south node is going to be Capricorn. If you have a north node in Leo, south node is going to be Aquarius. If you have a north node in Virgo, south node is going to be in Pisces. And then you switch, right? So if you have a south node in the signs, the north node is going to be directly opposite of that. And so with the nodes, it becomes a matter of finding the balance between the two, finding that sweet spot between the two, and understanding that this lifetime isn't going to allow you to rest on the laurels, if you will, of your south node energy. You already know that. You've already practiced that in a previous lifetime. But that's the energy that you're meant to use to evolve into the north node.
Mm.
I think that's important to explain because a lot of times the south node is seen as something bad and the north node is seen as something good. And the fact of the matter is that the north node isn't necessarily good or bad, and it is actually quite challenging because when you think about I'm here to learn new soul lessons of the north node energy, that means that you have to go through new experiences that are going to break you wide open your eyes to different things so that you lean into that north node energy.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So do your nodes stay in the same signs throughout your chart?
Mm-hmm.
So could you give me like a practical example? Like, what are your nodes? I don't know what mine are.
My nodes are north node in Aries, south node in Libra, and I think nodes your nodes are Gemini, Sag, but I can't remember which one is north and which one is south.
Okay.
So whenever we have that's a great question. So every set of nodes, right? Every set of signs represents a different part of life. So someone with nodes in Aries and Libra, whether north or south, the overall soul lesson there is relationships. And so you came here to learn some hard soul lessons uh, in relationships. So in my case, I have a north node in Aries and I have a south node in Libra, but I have an ascendant in Libra, and my relationship house is in Aries. So that's very interesting. It's quite a paradox, a very annoying paradox, right? Because I have the south node in Libra, which is my ascendant. The ascendant represents the type of relationship that we have with the world, how we meet the world. And Libra can be very accommodating. It can be very understanding. It can see both sides of this, both sides of an argument. It can be the mediator. But having the South Node there is saying that's not going to evolve your relationships. So if that's naturally who I came to be as a Libra ascendant and my South Node is there, it becomes a bit of a puzzle. And so then having the North Node in Aries in my sector of relationships, the North Node represents you have to become your own individual in relationships
Mhm.
in order to have successful relationships. And
Wow.
it's yeah. And it's really interesting because then the journey has been well, this is who I naturally am. And it's almost like I kind of have to fight who I naturally am in order to fulfill this sole purpose, which is the individuation in relationships in a really deep way.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really makes sense. So that is that based on what house? How do you know it's in relationships?
Exactly. So the sets of the nodes have a theme. And let's say that I didn't have the nodes in the actual sector of relationship. Maybe I had the nodes in the house of money and
Mm.
shared resources. Then the lesson would still be relationship to, but relationship to money, to resources, to spending, to money of others. And the question would become: am I dependent on another? Am I supposed to become self-sufficient, right? So
Mm.
the theme of the nodes, when you apply it to the houses, is in relationship to what the houses represent.
Got it.
Yeah. So now I can't remember. Now I'm really curious. Do you mind if I look up your chart so we can
Well, I
figure?
have it right here. So
Oh, okay,
I've
great.
I've got the south node in Gemini,
Okay,
and the north node is and south node in Gemini in the ninth house,
okay,
and the north node in the third house, which you probably knew, and
okay,
Sag.
great. So that's interesting because even those nodes are, I don't want to get too complicated. Those nodes correspond to those houses, but they're flipped. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have a south node in Gemini, it tends to mean that this person has the ability to grasp a lot of information or a ton of information all at once, right? So the perfect example, you used to be a bartender, you used to be a waitress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about how much mental stimulation is in all of that. You have to remember all of the little things for God knows how many people within an hour,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's Gemini energy. It's busy energy. It's collecting information from a lot of different places and retaining it. With the South Node there was something about that that just came very natural to you, and you may have, I don't know, you may have attributed that to, well, I have practice and experience, sure, and there are plenty of people who have also tried to be bartenders and waitresses and haven't been able to because that's what they have to do.
Well, even as a therapist, I'm constantly absorbing and
Right.
retaining, and
Right. Mm-hmm.
and I can
Mm-hmm.
remember people's stories and details and things like that.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so that's the South Node. So here you have this ability to retain information, to retain tons of little bits of information. The North Node then represents the North Node in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the philosopher of the zodiac. It is the eternal student as much as it is the professor of the zodiac. It is the sign of the zodiac that tells us we need to get out into the world in order to gain all of this wisdom and knowledge. Sure,
Mm.
we can gain wisdom and knowledge in our environment, in our vicinity, but the North Node in Sagittarius is asking you, how does all of these little things, how do all of these little things add to a greater picture? So someone with a North Node in Sagittarius their calling tends to be one of a teacher, right? A philosopher, someone who doesn't necessarily have a traditional education per se, and traditional in like Western society, like, right? Like you go through like the college, the masters, all the things. There's something that at some point someone with a North Node in Sagittarius is going to do slightly different because they're seeking to open their knowledge up to something different than what they've known all along.
Mm.
And so that North Node in Sagittarius also invites this person to trust that knowledge, to trust all of the knowledge that they have gathered, all of the data, if you will, that they have gathered with the South Node in Gemini, and to then really embody the professor, the teacher, the philosopher in them. And that really is the challenge for a North Node in Sagittarius. for that person to get to a point where maybe they don't call themselves that, but they understand, like, wait a minute, I know enough. I know enough to contribute something actually really substantial and important into either the collective or within this group or in a book, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
So one more thing that's really interesting in that is that you have the sun in Gemini, you have a natal sun in Gemini, and then you have a south node in Gemini. So whenever you have any personal planet, which is the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, in the same sign or conjunct either of the nodes, there's something very important about that. But with the south node in the sun, it's like the sun is your identity as Ashley, your identity as a therapist, right? With the south node there, that person has to be willing to let go of that, of any particular identity it may be living at any given moment,
Mm.
because the south node is there to strip of all of that, because you're always meant to aim towards the north node.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's really helpful. I like the relationship between the two, and it's really helpful to understand them.
Yeah. So okay. So then that takes us into, I want to kind of take everyone back to the first eclipse season of 2024, which was between March and April. We had a lunar eclipse in the sign of Libra, which is a full moon eclipse in the sign of Libra in March. And then we had a very potent, significant solar eclipse in the month of April, April 8th, if I remember correctly. April 8th, solar eclipse, which is a new moon eclipse in the sign of Aries. So I invite everyone to think back to that time. What was happening for you? What transpired? What did you find out? Um, Perhaps there were a few moments that were shocking, moments that were challenging, moments that brought something up that you were still kind of working through and trying to make sense, really, through the summer, through all of May, June, July, and August. Because those lessons that started in March and April of 2024 are going to either settle in a bit more, you're going to make significant decisions based on things that started then, there's going to be a turning point. Um, or at the very least, you're going to recognize how much what came up in March and April has truly shifted who you are as a person come the second eclipse season of the year, which is September and October.
Mm.
So I've noticed that not a lot of astrologers speak about this, but I quite frankly think that our lives and astrology really revolves around these eclipse seasons,
Mm.
because we tend to have two eclipse seasons every single year. The nodes will be in particular signs for about 18 months. So we will experience at least three eclipse seasons of about a year and a half in those signs. And we will learn the lessons of those signs, and then the nodes will switch signs, and then it's time to learn the other lessons, right? And so currently we have the south node transiting the sign of Libra, the north node transiting the sign of Aries, and universally the lessons are about relationship. So I invite everyone to think about, how has your definition of relationship shifted? Personal relationships, romantic relationships, family, business, friendships, your relationship to money, your relationship to yourself, your relationship certain to a certain career, like your relationships in general, and the relationship to your life and how you know it. What matters to you now in a way that perhaps didn't matter to you, or you didn't realize it mattered to you in the way that it does now, March and April of 2024. And as we move into September, October 2024, We're going to be making decisions. We're going to start planning for things that are going to take us into 2025 based on something that was sparked in March and April of 2024.
Mm.
So I kind of give this timeline because when eclipses take place and we go through like this whirlwind of a portal of about 8 weeks, people tend to go into it, stuff happens, they come out of it, and then it's like, oh, well, life as usual. But really, it's not when you really pay attention. It's not life as usual. I think we're usually trying to rush out of having to deal with anything that came from eclipse season,
Mhm.
when essentially we're meant to understand, integrate, make decisions for the next eclipse season.
Mhm.
Because when we do that, eclipse seasons feel less heavy and less harsh because not because they necessarily are, but because there's more intentionality behind them.
Got it. So what you're saying, I just want to make sure. So things that came up between March and April, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe inspiration or maybe
Mm-hmm.
pain points or
Mm-hmm.
nudges. What I notice about those things, like sometimes it can feel like, well, I'm not really sure how to take action on those. And
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned is to pay attention and to notice what the feelings come up around those, like inspiration, pain points, nudges, transformational moments, and to give them space.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is come September and October, we might notice how those things fall into place or come together or break apart,
Right.
or what action to take.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, then that makes sense. So like, and so what I'm hearing is, the time in between where we can kind of go, well, nothing's happened, on to the next, is an
Right.
opportunity for us to nurture the parts of us that will be ready to receive those things or be ready to take action, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. I think that because because eclipse seasons represent a time for soul evolution and the ego needs to take such a back seat, right? And so here's a practical example of what I mean by that. A lot of times during eclipse seasons people will change jobs or lose jobs or move from where they live or there's a relationship rupture, right? And these are just very practical simple examples. But all of those things inform our identity, right? Our career or job. They are a doctor, they are a therapist, right? They are in a relationship with, they are someone's wife, they are someone's husband. All of those things form our identity, our egoic identity. And during eclipse season, if those things are not in genuine alignment and within integrity of what our soul came here to do, eclipse seasons will highlight how they are in misalignment.
Um,
And depending on the actual foundation of those things, of the relationship, of the career, of the job, of the place where you live, depending on the actual foundation of that, eclipses will highlight and potentially rupture
mhm,
because that's what your soul needs,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So that is such a key component to eclipse seasons because eclipse seasons bring such a change. And this took me a while to recognize that, oh, the universe is so kind that when I am making decisions that are not truly aligned with my soul's purpose and are in integrity with my soul, it will actually remove the things that are not in integrity with that.
mhm,
It may hurt my ego because it
mhm,
has. It may feel all the things, and yet that's the purpose of eclipse season. And I think that that's where there's a lot of resistance and there's a lot of heaviness that can come around those times. But
mhm,
every single time without a doubt, the the aftermath is this is exactly what needed to happen. Because of that is that I am where I am now. I mean, it's a lot of there's a requirement of a lot of openness, truly,
Mhm.
during this time, and flexibility.
Well, and I think something that I've learned in the cycles of astrology reminds me of the universe's timing is not this realm's timing. It's
Mm-mm.
not this fast pace, you got to get it done, 24-hour turnaround. It's just not that way. And I've really learned to respect and appreciate divine timing. I
Right,
think about some inspirations that came through like last October that are now coming to fruition now. And that's almost a year later.
right.
But it took me nurturing those inspirations for almost a year to feel like
Mhm,
I was fully ready to
mhm.
bring those into the world.
Right,
Um, and I think about some ideas that, like this idea that came to, I did a speaking engagement, in front of a group of people that aren't used to like the things I talk about, intuition and stuff. But I remember leaving that going, oh, that was fun. I would love to talk about this in environments and with people that aren't used to talking about it. I don't care. I think it's great. And I remember feeling the inspiration of wanting to do that if that was part of my path, but also like, I don't know how to do that. Like, how do I find businesses that are curious that want to do this? And
right.
so, what this reminds me is like, I have no idea. I just say yes. And
Mhm.
who knows what will come to fruition if I'm patient and I just nurture myself and my confidence around that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, I really love that you mentioned last October because, as I mentioned a few moments ago, the time that the nodes spend in a particular set of signs is a total of 18 months.
Mm.
So, I don't know if for me, and I don't know if this is in my head or if this is actually something that happens. I feel the shift of the nodes. Maybe it's because this is what I pay attention to every single day. But when the nodes switched into Aries Libra last July, July 2023, I started noticing the things that people were talking about on social media. That's also fascinating. I noticed when the nodes switch signs, all of a sudden people's content have everything to do with those themes, and
That's
not
so
everyone has.
cool.
Yeah, and not everyone has an astrologer. Not everyone's into astrology. Even the people that I think would resist astrology, it's like, well, you're talking about it, whether you realize it or not. Um, but anyway, July 2023, the node switched into Aries Libra. You're an Aries ascendant. You're an Aries rise, not Aries Libra rising.
An Aries descendant.
Right, Aries descendant. And so for the first eclipses that we had were last October. The first we had a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. And so that's when this started for you, right? This inspiration. But it has taken about a year to nurture that.
Mhm.
That's the perfect example of understanding that something will be sparked for everyone in some way, shape, or form around the themes of the signs where the nodes are at. Something will be sparked at the beginning of that, and you will see it come full circle at the end of those 18 months.
Wow.
You will see it come full circle. So for you being a Libra ascendant, more than this having to do with relationships, it has to do with the relationship that you have with yourself and the relationship of what you feel capable of what you feel allowed to do, of the things that are interesting to you, what you allow yourself to do, right? Because to experience the South Node transiting the ascendant, that's a whole nother topic. That could be a whole nother episode in itself. But that's
Wow.
really important.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we as we move to the second eclipse season of the year, this is going to be interesting because the first eclipse of the season is going to be September 17th, and it is a lunar eclipse, which is a full moon eclipse in the sign of Pisces. Not Aries, not Libra, but Pisces. Okay. So we tend to have kind of like the universe tends to gift us with like a sneak peek of the following cycle. The following cycle is going to be eclipses in Pisces, Virgo,
Mm.
but those are not going to start till 2025. The nodes are going to switch signs January 2025.
Mm.
But this tends to happen when one cycle is about to end. That last eclipse season, that last eclipse season before the nodes change, we tend to get like a sneak peek eclipse of the following signs that are to come.
Mm.
So that's going to be interesting. So one of the things one of the things that I'm going to take you all back to is that the last time we had eclipses in Virgo Pisces was 2016 and 2017.
Mm.
So you're going to think back to that time, what happened, right? It'll come to
If
you,
you can remember.
right? If you can remember, it'll come back to you. And it's not going to necessarily like give you it's not going to be the same, right? Lessons, but it will be the same themes. And
Mm.
it will show you how you have grown. It will show you yet a different layer of those same themes,
Mm.
of those same lessons, which I think is fascinating because it's kind of like reading a book multiple times, just at different times in your life,
Right.
right?
Mm.
When you read a certain book in your 20s and you read it again in your 30s, it hits you differently because the lens from which you're reading it, you have 10 years of wisdom that you've
Mm.
gained along the way. And that's
Mm.
how eclipses work, even though they touch the same themes.
Mm.
And I find important I find it important to name that because a lot of times dates can be thrown out there. Well, what were you doing in 2016, 2017? And people are like, oh my God, well, my life turned upside down. Is it going to turn upside down again? It's like, no, because this is also another thing. If the life that you have built, the relationships that you have in your life are genuine, they're genuine relationships. And by genuine, I mean that they actually feel good, that you don't have to pretend to be something you're not in those spaces, then eclipse season actually brings a lot more joy. Eclipse
Mm.
season brings on more opportunities. There's a lot of growth, there's a lot of expansion in the things that are already there.
Oh, that's really fun to know.
Right. Because anything in our life and any astrological event that happens to coincide with it, it only highlights what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also important to understand because astrology, the energy of the planets don't make anything necessarily happen. They just highlight, amplify, magnify what's already there. And eclipses will especially do that. So, anyway, back to September. September 17th, we're going to have the first lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. Um, it's a lunar eclipse. It's a full moon. Full moons tend to be very emotional. People feel all the feels, all the things. In the sign of Pisces, it's a water sign. It's the last sign of the zodiac. Um, Lunar events tend to represent the emotional understanding that something has come to an end. Okay. But in true Pisces energy, that is meant to, that ending is really meant to regenerate us.
Mm.
Water in the zodiac, water, the element of water, the water signs are there to regenerate, are there to heal our soul. They're kind of like a balm to any wounds. So I anticipate that's going to be an interesting eclipse for people. I anticipate that people are really going to feel that one.
Mm.
And then the second eclipse is going to be on October 10th. No, sorry, October 2nd at 10 degrees Libra. It's a solar eclipse. It's a new moon eclipse in the sign of Libra. That's exciting because whenever we have a solar eclipse, whenever we have a new moon eclipse, First of all, solar eclipses, because they are masculine, more masculine in nature. The sun represents masculine things in this 3D reality. This can come with new relationships, with a new job, with new opportunities, with the sun tends to represent a lot of tangible manifestations. So that's actually really great. Now, that's the day of the solar eclipse, again, October 2nd, and that's going to open up a 6-month energetic window that's going to take us into March of 2025, which means that within those 6 months that eclipse manifestation can take place. So this is why I'm creating an eclipse guide. This is why I'm creating an eclipse guide. It's going to be up on my website September 1st, and you'll all be able to have access to it. It's going to be $25. But this is why, because this eclipse season, I think, is going to be interesting in that it's going to have a lot of aspects of tension. But here's the thing, tension can either really motivate us, or it can make us face certain tensions in our lives with certain people. But those are things that really need to just come to an end. The tension is there so that it is confronted and we can finally move past something, so that that thing no longer holds us back internally.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was curious, what kinds of questions do you get around eclipses? Like, because when you talk about, a powerful time of manifestation, I know that like people get, ooh, and that expectation that's going to be tangible in that day and the next day and stuff. So
Yeah.
I was kind of curious, like, what do you notice? How can eclipse season be misunderstood in that way?
In terms of manifestations?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a great question, because eclipse seasons tend to be the time where people manifest the most. But here's the thing, here's where I think people can kind of be disappointed, is that the manifestations that come again are not based on the ego. They're based on whether or not what you are attempting to align with, attempting to connect with, is in integrity with your soul.
Mhm.
So let's say, because I've seen this eclipse seasons time after time, people will manifest the career, the job, people will manifest the relationship, people get engaged, people get married, uh, all of those things, right? Very human things. And when they do, I'm like, this is truly for them. This is truly for them, because it tends to come in very like synchronistic, almost serendipitous ways.
Mhm.
So not a few years ago, now it's like 11, 12 years ago, we were in the middle of eclipse season and I was looking for a job. At the time, I wasn't even studying astrology yet. I figured this out when I started studying astrology and when I started researching events in my past, right? But I remember this specifically. I was looking for a job at the time. Again, didn't wasn't really aware of astrology in the way that I am. Didn't know we were in eclipse season. I used to go to the gym with this woman. She and I used to work together. And we happened to have a conversation of, oh, I'm looking for a job. And she said, what do you do? I'm a legal secretary. We're hiring a legal secretary. Within a week, I quit one job and I had another.
Mhm.
Eclipse season. It's, I had worked out with this woman for months. I didn't even know what she did. She was just my workout buddy, right?
Wow. Mm.
So we happened to have the conversation. They happened to be hiring at the law firm she worked at. She became my supervisor. She became one of my closest friends. So all of these things just fell into place.
So, what would you recommend to someone who wants to take advantage of the energy? And also, how long does this energy last? Is it 2 months? Is it 8 weeks, six
Right.
weeks?
So I like to extend the energy. Different astrologers will have different timelines, but I go from the new moon before the first eclipse to the new moon after the second eclipse. In this case, for me, eclipse season starts with the new moon in Virgo of September 2nd and ends with the new moon in Scorpio of, I think, November 1st or something like that. I don't remember the exact date.
Mm,
So that's September, October, and the first bit of November.
mm,
So to me, it's anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. Okay.
okay.
So let's say that, how can people take advantage of this? This is interesting because if the ego is meant to take a backseat, eclipse seasons tend to be a time where I don't practice any like manifestation rituals. I'm very careful with the energy because again, this it's an understanding of this is much greater than me, and that's what's at play here. Look, I think that if you have the clarity around what you want to do, where you're headed next, if this is something that in between eclipses you have been planning for, you have been doing research, you have been, really putting all of your adult things together, then eclipse season can really be a time where you can reach out and make connections that can actually take you somewhere. But if that's what you've been doing already, chances are that eclipse seasons will just very naturally bring it to you,
Mm,
right? Um, so it's interesting. I mean, like I said, in that one example, I wasn't planning anything. I had no idea. It was just a very natural thing that happened. But I had already previously had the intention I want another job. I want a new job,
mm,
right?
that
So I
makes
know
sense.
that that can be like a little, maybe that's a little bit of a wishy-washy answer, but does it help at all?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is trusting in the divine timing of like the intentions you're going into an eclipse season with,
Hmm.
unless it's something that's really that you've been working on a soul level that you can put the practical, tangible steps into
Yes,
play during that season and kind of align with like the magic of it. But I'm
exactly.
hearing don't force anything,
Mm-mm.
don't try to manipulate anything.
Mm.
And, again, like this is such a good opportunity or a reminder of okay, what's the difference between soul and ego? Ego
Mhm,
seeks external validation. Ego is fear based.
mhm,
um, Soul is love based. Soul
mhm,
is peaceful, harmonious. It's for our highest good. You can feel it in the heart's desire.
mhm.
um, what you're seeking would just feel harmonious to your life. It's not a quick dopamine fix. It's not like a drug. It's not like something you need or you won't be okay. It's like
Right.
something you choose to experience that will support your evolution.
Mhm, mhm. Absolutely. And what you'll notice, and if something comes to manifestation for you very naturally during eclipse season, you will notice the gifts of that manifestation for years. Because again, back to that example, yeah, so I got that job, happened very quickly. Everything falls into place. That's what you'll notice happens, falls into place very easily, very quickly. And after some time of being at that job is where I met my partner Carlos,
Mm,
right? So that was like the thing that conversation that morning with that person took me there to that job where I was going to meet him,
mm,
right? So it's all of these things that just fall into place. There was nothing I couldn't have planned that. There's no way.
mm,
But and that goes to show that even when you think that you are not aligned or that you're unaware or that you feel disconnected, everything is always working out for you. That's
That's
also
such a great point. Like we
yeah,
need to remember, like if you feel like you don't understand this or really feel like your relationship to your soul is really strong or you're having that ongoing dialogue, and I get it. I look back at my life and life was conspiring to support my highest good. I said
mm,
yes to things that came along my way, but I had no idea I was seeking those things.
right.
So that is such a beautiful point that life is working out for you in your favor.
Yes.
Um, it's just whether you're saying yes to those things that will support that.
Right. Right. And let's say that something comes to you in eclipse season and you say no. It's not like the universe is like, well, you missed out.
It's such a good point. Yes.
Because the universe loves us infinitely.
Yeah.
The universe loves us unconditionally. And so they
Mhm.
figure, okay, well, they're being a little hard-headed right now. We'll come about it in another way at another time, right?
Yeah. We'll
We
try
never
again.
we'll try again. This is why I love eclipse seasons.
Mm.
Because every single time I am reminded that I don't have to know it all.
Mm.
Every single time I am reminded it, everything is falling into place right now. I may not see exactly how or what, but it is.
Mhm. I'm reminded of that over and over again. That when I feel like, "Oh, this is supposed to happen now, or I got to get this out, or I have any sort of frantic energy,
Mhm.
that's a sign to push pause and
That's
wait.
not it.
And that the things, and this doesn't mean you don't do practical steps, you take action, but you can feel in your body when something feels right, to put
Mhm.
something out into the world or to have a conversation, anything that you're pressing or frantic about, I would slow down and take a pause because there is energy supporting whatever it is you're trying to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's not, it's too late.
Right.
It's just not.
Right. It's not. I like that. I like that. It's too late because remember, we're when was the last time we experienced so the last time we experienced Aries Libra eclipses was 24 2014ish 2015ish.
Mm.
Okay, maybe a little less than that, maybe 2015ish into 2016. That was what, like 9 years ago. So some of the lessons that you didn't fully gain then, you're gaining them again now. You've
Mm.
gained them in this cycle.
That's so funny you say that. So I'll tell a personal story because I'm just realizing
Uh-huh.
9 years ago, I wanted to create a website and I wanted it to be about writing, right?
Uh-huh.
And I remember knowing nothing about websites and trying, and I put one up and I tried, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready
Right.
to write consistently. I had two little ones. I really wasn't in the version of myself. Like I wasn't the most, I didn't know who I wanted to be or how to express myself or represent myself. I didn't know what that looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so funny. And I just released my new website um, like last week on the full moon and then announced it today. But I'm thinking back to that. Well,
Yep.
that's what you're talking about. That cycle is like, okay, I tried, the inspiration came, and then
Yep.
now here I am, ready to write, finished a book proposal, released my website. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful. And I don't regret the 9 years that it took because I am the version of me that is so damn ready to do all the things, right? I wasn't 9 years ago. I was a frantic
See?
mess.
See? And by the way, we have not announced that you wrote a book proposal.
I did write a book proposal.
Yay!
I
I don't
did.
know if Brandon can add like a hey, like a celebration.
Hey. Well, let's just talk about that. I don't know when I had that inspiration.
Hmm.
I do know that it was about 25 years ago that I
Hmm.
read a book and I remember thinking, I want someone to one day read a book that I wrote and feel this way, feel less alone, inspired, encouraged, whatever. And I have been trying to come up with what that book would be, tried to write different versions of it. And not until this year was I ready to put it all together. And then it just came together. So, like, another example of I'm ready now. And if I let my ego chew on that, I'd be like 25 years, you're 50. But the book I'm writing, I needed 25 years of healing and growth and practice and experience to be able to write the book that I want to write. That
Right.
younger version of me had the intention for. At 25, I didn't know shit. I didn't know shit about healing. I hadn't become a
Yeah.
practitioner. What was I going to share with anyone except my sad story about, like, an abusive childhood? I got to offer
Right.
hope. So,
Right.
yeah, thank you. So it's just if you can be patient and trust and love yourself along the way, man, this shit can be awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, so you just said something really key. And this is where like the lines of humanness and spirit get a little blurry. Okay. So you were born with North Node in Sag, South Node in Gemini. That's what you were born with, right? At the age of 25, you had an inkling of, I want to write a book. And when someone reads it, I want them to feel the way that I'm feeling right now as I read this book, whatever book that was for you. What I've come to ask myself and to believe more and more is that this is where the lines of time get blurred, because I think that you had that inkling, that nudge, that desire from your future self,
Mm.
from your current
Yes.
self.
Yeah.
Your current self, somewhere inside of you, that 25-year-old version of you, said, that's in me, but I don't know how to do that yet.
Mm.
I have a desire, but how do I do that? What does that look like? What does that mean? Right?
Mm.
But your current 50-year-old self, who you were meant to become, right? Because people with Gemini Sag nodes tend to be writers, teachers, just very naturally, or at least that's what they're meant to aim for. And maybe not in a traditional sense of you write a book, but you're really meant to go around the world, like go about life in a way in which you teach, right?
Yes.
But this is where, for me, like, I feel that our future selves, the selves that have already done the things that we desire to do in present moment, and I use these air quotes, right? Because this is when time collapses.
Yeah.
It's all true now. It all exists now. All that to say that if whoever, for whomever is listening, if you have a desire right now and it's something that doesn't leave you, it's something that you're like, why am I so attracted to that? Or why do I like, why does that pique my interest so much? Or, I want to write that book, whatever it is. Don't dismiss that.
Mm-mm.
There is a version of you that has already done that, which is why that desire in you exists.
Mm.
So if you can know that, why would you ever quit anything that is of genuine interest to you?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
If you can know that that your desires and your interests and your dreams stem from a place of, somewhere in some timeline, some part of you has already done it, that's where that's coming from. Why
Mm.
would you ever quit? Why would you ever stop?
Why would you ever put like an expiration date on that dream?
Exactly.
I mean, I did feel, especially over the past few years, that I will die 1,000 deaths if I don't write this book or get it out, and I will do it in whatever way, self-published. I just have to get it out of me. It like started to
Yeah.
become painful,
Yes.
like really painful. But what's interesting is I feel like my future self is showing me, because I really believe I can write it. You know, how people are like, and when Lara wrote his book, like our family was in a really difficult time just with our kids, and our son was going through a lot. And I just like, I think about what he wrote and his job and how much he worked, how he wrote that book. And it was not fun. He
Mhm.
enjoyed writing the book,
Right.
but it was like, I don't want to do it that way. And my future self keeps showing me, we're going to surf a lot the next year while we write this book. Like, we're going to like do it in a
Oh,
fun
I love
way. I keep seeing visions of it. I keep
that.
saying to Blair, like, I have this vision that we're going to do this differently.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and when you said that, I was like, oh, I think my future self is like, hey, just let's have fun. Let's
Yeah.
make this fun.
Yeah. So let's say that you do want to do an exercise during eclipse seasons, or during this eclipse season, whatever, wherever, whenever you want, but especially during eclipse season, because eclipse seasons are, again, it's a period of time where time really collapses.
Mm.
Uh, it's what people, quantum jumps can really happen, right? This is a time where you can go into meditation and connect with the higher self. with a future version of you, not asking them for anything other than the guidance that you need at this moment in time with your current circumstances to fulfill your soul's purpose in this lifetime. That's really what it's about.
Mm.
And that's a more intentional exercise if someone wants something more tangible.
It's a great idea. A really great idea.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's this is when I get really excited, and it's like there's so much possibility and potential and realignment and redirection in the right direction during eclipse seasons.
Mhm.
But we just have to, you got it, we got to take it easy. It's okay. It's okay.
Take it
And
easy, be open and curious, care for your body, rest.
right,
Mm.
right. And don't get me wrong, I've seen people really experience significant things during eclipse seasons.
Mm.
But especially when things happen during eclipse seasons, it's like if there's any if there's anything you need to know about why did this happen, if it was meant to happen this way, all of the things during eclipse seasons, yes. Yes to all the things. Yes to all the things.
Mm.
And if we can welcome that with an open heart, then I think we begin to understand much more of where we're meant to head next, of what the teachings of Abraham Hicks call the next logical step.
Mm. I love that. Thank you. You've really like helped me understand because it used to feel kind of daunting and scary, and
Yeah,
now it feels more exciting.
I think so. I think it is a time of excitement. And I mean, every single time I go into it excited, in the middle is like, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of processing, and still, and this is genuinely like coming from my heart, and still I'm grateful for it all
Mm.
because just I don't know, because of what I know, because of what I understand, because of what I remember
Mm.
from other eclipse seasons.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's a relationship to life.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is a relationship to life, and sometimes it takes that level, or maybe that kind of that level of force, like energetic force, to remind us of who we are, to remind us that we are always guided, that we are always led, that we are always taken care of.
Hmm.
That's really what eclipse seasons are here to remind us about. If we pay attention, whatever the direction our life takes, that's beautiful divine universal consciousness saying, this way,
Mm.
this is the way.
Mm.
Every time I believe that with every part of my being.
It's incredible. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
so your workbook is available soon. Well, by the time this comes out, it'll be
right,
available.
right. So I'm launching a new website September 1st, and this eclipse guide is going to be part of that launch. It's going to come with 3 different guided meditations, lessons on all of the lunar events in between the eclipses, including the eclipses, and a workbook with grounding journaling prompts so that everyone follows their process throughout eclipse season intentionally. And
Mm.
that way, when you do it that way, you realize how much you're working with the energy as opposed to feeling like, stuff is just happening to you. Um, yeah, and it's going to be $25, making it accessible for everyone. Also, if for those of you listening, if you know someone who is like going through a rough time during this season, send them the link. Maybe they're open to understanding what this is all about. Yeah, eclipse seasons shake everybody up, and when they don't understand what's happening, it can truly be a frightening time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So by
Yeah.
the time people listen, we will both have new websites out with
Yes.
new offerings. I'm
Yes. What
teaching
are
again
your
in the fall.
offerings?
I'm teaching my intuitive development class in October. So that is, and with the class, I have these new beautiful journals, these reusable journals that have my logo on beautiful wood that my friend Missy at Simply Grateful designed. And those will be, you will get those with the class and a PDF workbook of 3 ways to engage with your magic. So I'm very excited about that. I just feel like there's so much beautiful energy in the air around just like things we're bringing into the world and birthing. And thank you to Patsy Kenny
Oh
for
yeah.
helping us birth these projects. We've been working with her and it's been an incredible experience.
Yes. We should actually put Patsy's info in the description of this episode.
Yes.
Um, Patsy is an amazing uh, intuitive creative coach
Mhm.
who just happens to have a wealth of knowledge around marketing and websites and all of the things. But I've never worked with someone in this way where she really connects soul to soul to bring out what your soul's expression, your soul's true expression into a website and colors and images and all of the wonderful things. Patsy is truly amazing.
So special. Yeah. So we're very excited to share those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for enlightening us all around eclipse season. I'm so grateful for the information and for also helping me understand the nodes. I can't wait to like look at my kids' nodes and my partner's nodes.
Yes, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I think everyone should do that with the people closest to them because it just gives you greater insight as to even though these people are in your life, everyone has a different path, right? That you can walk alongside and it's still different.
Astrology has helped me understand my children in a different way. Like it just shows me what's already there, but
Right.
in context and that I can nurture and appreciate.
Hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah. I love talking about this stuff, especially eclipses. So I hope this is helpful to everyone. I hope it made sense. Uh, Keep an eye out for the guide for Ashley's journal. Ashley's journal can be a great journal to, follow the prompts of the guide through. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we're giving you the tools.
Yes. Thank y'all for listening and we will talk to you next time.
Take care.